Guess what? A recent study reveals that most kids age 8 to 12 years old aren't exactly buying into the whole biblical worldview thing, and only 3% of them embrace all the 7 cornerstones of a biblical worldview. These cornerstones include beliefs in God, sin, and trusting the Bible. Only about a third acknowledge their sins and seek forgiveness, and just over a quarter do what they believe God wants them to do. The study also suggests that kids' beliefs are influenced by adults, and most adults aren't exactly devout believers. So it seems like the younger generation is forging their own path when it comes to faith. Let's see where their journey takes them. This article is from the Christian Post by Ryan Foley on October 23rd, 2023. And, this reminds me a lot of kind of my journey, when I started off in my youth just believing what I was told, and then grew up, got older, was less devout. And I think I just kind of adopted more worldviews that were kind of all thrown together. But before we get into really what I feel, I want to see how this article struck the one and only Kelley Laughlin. Kelley, what do you think?
Wow, I didn't know you were going to throw it right to me. One of the things that I
That's
found
my
was
bad,
really
Kelley, because I meant to throw it to Cindy, and I skipped
that's
Cindy on
okay. I'll throw it
accident.
to her. I'll throw
Okay,
it to her
okay.
for you.
I
Okay.
didn't know
I
we
found
were
it
going.
interesting. No, go
No,
ahead,
go
Cindy.
ahead.
You go. You go.
Okay.
No,
Uh,
please. I'll defer to you.
yeah, one of the most striking quotes from this article was 35% of adolescents think that sin is real and significant. We are all sinners by choice. And this to me is the most harmful aspect of this religion, because not only it is totally illogical, contradictory, because you cannot be responsible for something you are born with. That just doesn't make any sense. But it removes any self-worth to individuals, and at the same time instills victim blaming into the equation. And that's something that's extremely harmful to a society at large, and to individuals also. Uh, and it's very very damaging on the psychological level. It also hits home because uh, I have a person who is close to me um, who is being harmed by their parents because of their religious beliefs, and those religious beliefs, they prevent the parents from seeking any help because they believe that, well, because they believe they can't be um, harming their child, you know. uh, if I'm guided by the law, then I cannot do anything wrong, basically. And so, with everything that's going on right now in the world, every time we speak, especially in the ACA, every time we speak about religion, uh, we often speak about the many death that it causes. But I think we need to speak much more about uh, the, the hundreds of millions in history who were miserable, sometimes for their entire life, because of the religion's dogmas. I think that's something we need to emphasize, because sometimes death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. A lifetime of misery because of a belief, uh, sometimes it can be worse. And that's why we need to fight those beliefs and those um, uh, indoctrination techniques that we see talked about in this article. uh, and yeah, I think that's why I'm here, especially myself. And I guess that it's the same for you guys. Kelly?
One of the things I found funny about the article was that the same organization that published these 7 cornerstones of a biblical worldview, the Cultural Resource Center at Arizona Christian University, is also the same organization that says young people today aren't abiding by them. First they're like, hey, everybody follow those rules. And then a few months later, they're like, hey, this is bullshit. Nobody's following these rules we want them all to follow. And I just thought that was just kind of funny and I had never heard of the 7 cornerstones before in my life, so I had to go look them up. And to be honest, I wouldn't abide by them either. Quick rundown: Orthodox biblical understanding of God. All human beings are sinful by nature. Knowing Jesus Christ is the only means of salvation. The entire Bible is true, reliable, and relevant, and is a moral guide. Absolute moral truth exists, and that truth is defined by God. The ultimate purpose of human life is to know, love, and serve God. Success on earth is being understood as consistent obedience to God. There you go, all 7 of them. Every Sunday on the call-in shows, we hear Christians calling in trying to make one of these points and just being ridiculed by the hosts. I don't know why this organization and Dr. Barna would have the idea that rational people would listen to these things and abide by them. And let's face it, kids are getting educated a lot faster and a lot more intricately that's not the word. They're getting a lot more education a lot faster than they did when I was a young lad. And a lot of these people, I'm sure Barna's my age, a lot of these older guys are like, hey, how come these kids don't buy into this bullshit anymore? And yeah, I could see why. Aaron?
Yeah, the internet's been a great thing for learning things that you weren't necessarily taught by your parents and sometimes your school, depending where you live. The internet can be a bad thing. You can go out there and learn about things that are patently not true, flat earth and things like that. But you can also come to YouTube and find videos about the history of the Bible and how and why it was compiled and put together. You can find, all sorts of fun stuff about challenging your dogmatic beliefs that you've been taught. And I like these numbers aren't as low as I'd like them to be, but they're low enough that I kind of like them. The one number that was concerning me was 69% of people still believe in God. I wish that was a little bit lower, because there's just I learned a few years ago when I started watching ACA shows, there's just no evidence. There's no good reason to believe that God exists. And which God are you going to believe? The God of the Bible or one of the other hundreds or thousands of gods that people have proposed? I'm encouraged because historically the truth seems to win out over long periods of time, over lifetimes. And if you look at something like homosexuality, 50 years ago it was considered a mental illness. You had to be cured from it, and now it's understood that's just how you are. That's just how we come into the world as human beings. And there are even Christian sects that have pastors and priests that are gay. That's a big change in 50 years. And same-sex marriage is now legal in the United States by law passed by our Congress, amazingly, but not by Supreme Court decree. And so these numbers the trend is encouraging to me. Jimmy?
Well, what we see in this article really shouldn't be a surprise to any of us, because we all know that children are likely to reflect their parents' viewpoints, and they're often shielded from what the Bible actually teaches anyway. So I don't believe that many children would think on their own that it's okay to own other human beings, or that women should marry their rapists, right? So that those might be complex concepts for a lot of youth, but I think without outside influence, those kinds of things really wouldn't resonate with a normal person. And I use normal loosely, but reacting to the research in this article, Dr. George Barna, a veteran evangelical poster, insisted that we know what practices are most effective at developing young disciples. Yeah, exactly. To the points that have already been made, children are being educated quicker and to better quality. And so the thing that it would take, or what it would take to develop young disciples, is for parents to step in and thwart that education and really hamper the potential that their children can have. And Barna continues, any parent can be part of the solution if they so desire. It starts with a commitment to raising a spiritual champion, whatever that means, which requires a solid plan that the adult consistently implements. The plan calls for a steady diet of teaching, discussing, and modeling biblical principles and evaluating how well the child is doing at understanding and applying those principles. What this article is really uncovering is that religion is having trouble holding on to their congregations because they are getting older, more educated, and leaving the church. And they don't have their parents to really lie to them and beat them down. And even the parents are leaving. It's precisely what the evangelical poster in this article states, that in order to raise young disciples, children need a mass of parents, grandparents, pastors, teachers, coaches, and other influencers. And that's just not happening, right? These people are necessary, right? It takes a village kind of thing to prioritize biblical teaching in order to brainwash their kids, essentially. And even this evangelical Dr. Barna notices that people are less willing to do that. We're moving on, and I say we, just us as a people in general, from religion. If you look back decades ago, 90% of American society claimed to be religious. Aaron said 69%, only 69% today identify as religious. I had 70. But even those who cling to these dogmas, as it seems like it's dissipating, we're also seeing this increase in people considering themselves spiritual, which is kind of annoying because we don't really know what that even means, but I'll take it as a win. If somebody's going to leave their religion and they're going to adopt other worldview kind of positions and merge these different things that they're learning and consider themselves spiritual, then hey, those are potentially less children being molested in cathedrals and maybe, less women being oppressed because those traditional mindsets aren't being enforced. And so that's my take on how I see religion going and how it relates to children. So, Cindy, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we know that if we forbade religion to be taught to children before the age of 18, for example, religion would disappear in a couple generations. We know that there is a reason why parents want to teach their religion to their children. It's because it's the only way to have them believe. It's by teaching all this nonsense at a very young age. And it's so hard, especially in the US, where this idea that parents have almost unlimited right regarding their children. It's almost impossible to have this discussion, but we need to find a way to protect children. And one of the ways is to give them access to as much education as possible. And as you said, the internet does that. And the ACA shows and other platforms on the internet, they also participate in providing this education. But we need to try and make it more palatable and more accessible to children, because they are the primary target of Christians. And so we need to find better ways to protect them. Kelley?
I agree. That's yeah, I totally agree. In fact, Barnes said, if these influencers really love or care about young people, then following through with effective disciple-making practices should not be a significant obstacle. Really? I mean, loving and caring about young people that's teaching them they're in an abusive relationship with an imaginary being. It doesn't make any sense to me. And like principle 2 and 3 really are. They sound like the language that an abused domestic partner would say. It's really, really horrible. Everybody has mentioned something about people leaving religion, and I was wondering what everybody thought was the reason for that. I'm an ex-RFR agent recovering from religion. I've talked to people. I talked to a lot of people on Discord about it, so I have some personal views on it. No data to give you or anything, but I was wondering, I'd like to hear what everybody else thought, and then I'll give you some of my personal experiences. So, Aaron, what do you think is causing this movement away from religion?
I think it's just we're learning so much more about the way the world works. We know, and we have a lot more knowledge now about where these religions come from and why they exist. And for me, it was finally, I mean, I was religious. Even after I left the church, I still believed in God. I was just angry and didn't want anything to do with him anymore. Until it wasn't until I started listening to ACA shows where I realized, oh, there's this thing called evidence, and there's actually no evidence that God actually exists, because it's all, there's just no evidence that God is actually real, and that's what kind of
What do
brought
you
me
think?
out of it.
What do you think it is making these young people leave, though? You think it's better education?
I think I think it's the internet. Personally, I think they're being exposed
Yeah,
to
you did
different
mention that.
ideas on the internet, on YouTube, on TikTok, or wherever they're looking. There, you can't have an insulated kid anymore. They're going to go to school and they're going to watch videos and they're going to be on YouTube and they're going to come across things, and it's just like Daniel said in the Bible, it's like a stone rolling down the hill and just gaining more and more momentum, and it's just going to gain more and more momentum. And who knows what the religious landscape in this country, in this world, is going to look like in 50 to 100 years.
Yeah,
I'm
Jimmy,
optimistic. I'm optimistic. Jimmy?
And to continue on that, to piggyback, if you will, the kids are recognizing the bullshit. And it's because they're maybe through the internet, but their guard is let down a little bit, and they're starting to see that there are other people out there that they are accepting of, and their faith, this dogma, tells them that they can't be accepting of them. And I think a lot of the kids would just choose their friends over this ridiculous ideology that can't be proven true, right? And one thing that helps that along is the lack of consistency in religion. There are so many holes, and we covered one just in this show already, because the article, or in this segment, I should say, the article said that we are all sinners by choice. Well, I really never heard that. I always heard growing up that we were naturally sinners, right? I mean, we're bad people. That's it. We're bad people, and it's not by choice. It's because of the choices that were made by Adam and Eve, and we've just inherited that, and we're going to think ugly things and do ugly things, and we always have to ask for forgiveness. But we have a choice. That's news to me. And so that is just one minuscule way that things just don't line up. But that is consistent across the board. They never line up. And I think as children are exposed to more learning methods, to more ideas, to more people that are unlike themselves or unlike their community, they're starting to see these inconsistencies, and in a greater variety. So,
the world is shrinking. The world is much smaller than it used to be, right? It used to be, 100, 200 years ago, you were never exposed to anything but your tribe in your town or wherever you lived. And now our tribe is the whole world. You get to see what's going on all over the world, in the news, on the internet, everywhere. And so you get to see all the different ideas and all the different things. And it's just like, interesting. Not everybody's a Christian. Not everybody's a Muslim. Right. Not everybody's this or that.
Right.
Interesting. It get you thinking. Cindy?
Yeah. I completely agree with that idea. Exposition to different ideas is also education. So that's part of the idea.
One of the things that I heard a lot was educational experience. Like kids would say, I have a friend who is gay, because the younger generation is a lot more open about being gay and realizing this person is not a bad person. And yet all these religious people I know are condemning this person for being bad, and they're a good person. And that was one of the things I heard. And another thing that I heard a lot was hypocrisy. Those people over there, what they're doing is really bad. But when we do the same thing, it's in the name of God, so it's all right. And those were the two things, the two things that I heard the most from people, and still do on Discord. So I thought, but I think you're right. I think education is a big part of it. I think that's where we're headed. That maybe, hopefully, more and more kids will be coming to their senses and reject these bad, outdated teachings. Hopefully, and we want to hear more from you, a lot more from you. So leave a comment below, Email us at nonprofits at atheist-community.org. And if you want to watch more nonprofits, you can click right here.